Hey, Tim Holstad, singer-songwriter. Thanks for stopping. So, I want to talk about something I was thinking about today because I'm probably just as guilty of this as you might be, in that maybe you might be thinking, maybe there's this, I just need more gear. I'm kind of stuck with what I have, and maybe I just need another guitar that'll sound better, or I need this new keyboard so I can sound better, or whatever it happens to be. And I've been guilty of that, I'll admit that. I have three guitars. Um, there's an electric, there's a 6 string acoustic electric, there's a 12 string acoustic electric, but they do different things for me. I have two bass guitars. Do I need two bass guitars at this point? Probably not, but they both give me different sounds, so I have them. I have 5 keyboards. Do I need that many keyboards? Probably not. There's one that's an old friend that's been here forever. There was one that I bought because I was in a band and I needed a Leslie speed setting to change, to change the speed of that. And it had a it had a setting right on the keyboard that I could do that. So I ended up getting this keyboard. I haven't used it much, but there it is. So yeah, I get the whole idea that I guess I need more gear to sound better. I need this effect. I need that thing. I need this other thing. And I really am coming to the conclusion as time goes on that I really don't need more gear, because if I've got instruments, especially things that are made out of wood, you got to play them, right? You have to play them so that they retain their strength. It's not going to do that guitar or that bass or even that acoustic piano any good to just sit there and not get played. I've even gone so far as to say, to ask people. You go through these old houses and that are museum exhibits now, basically some famous person, and they'll have a piano sitting there in one of the rooms, and I will often ask, do these things get played? Do they get tuned? Because after a while, they just sit, and they're not maintained, and if something goes out of tune and stays out of that way long enough, you can't save it. You can't get it back. So I really don't think the answer is in more gear. I can remember when I was in this band I referred to before, that I got this keyboard for that I didn't use much. There was a guy that we played with for a time. He was an older keyboard player, and he couldn't bring a lot of gear. He'd gotten older. He was a little more frail. He couldn't bring all this stuff. So there was this one gear in particular. He brought this little dinky thing. It was a toy, basically. But he got up there. We helped him set up, and so he could play. And he made that thing sound great because he'd taken the time to learn how to play. And I think that's the bottom line, that we don't need more gear necessarily. We just need to get better. We need to take that time to work and get better. I can remember when I was getting ready to go to college. I was a bass guitarist mainly, and I was dealing with a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts going around in this head, thinking about writing songs, and eventually I would start, and did so when I was in college. But to get there, as I've said before, I had to kind of reinvent myself. I had to take up another instrument because they didn't have a curriculum for bass guitar. And this was the college that my mother was dead set on my going to. So I had to, again, pick up what piano I knew, go in, try to audition, and they did let me in, which I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't passed that, but never had to ask Mom of that question because I did pass the audition and I could major in piano. So, what ended up happening was I became this songwriter as opposed to just playing a bass guitar. And I found that I had to reinvent myself. Specifically, as time went on, and I find everybody else that I'm playing with has their own thing they want to do. Yeah, I found that if I was going to do it, I was going to have to do it myself. So definitely I had to reinvent myself then. Had to learn a whole bunch of things. And yes, there was more gear that I had to pick up. But the biggest thing I had to do was get to where I developed my skills enough that I could play all the parts if I had to. I've got this song. Okay, great. This is actually a good enough song that I want to share with other people. That's fabulous, but I've got to do it myself. So I had to learn how to use DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, some program that you can record into. Had to get the gear so I could do that. But when you press record, what have you got in the tank? What have you got in your bag of tricks? You have to have something. And you have to have enough of that something so that you can do what you have to do. For example, I can't play drums, but I can mess around with a keyboard so it sounds like I'm playing drums. And I had to learn, obviously, how a drummer thinks, so I'm playing something that sounds like a drummer would play it. Basically, I had to, like I say, reinvent myself. But what saved me with recording the albums was the fact that I can play keyboards, and I can play them well enough that I can get the parts that I need from that. I can layer as I need to so that it sounds like it's well produced, and I then can hand somebody that recording to master it and get it to where it's at a professional level that I'm not going to get here. Again, though, it's developing the skill, right? I had to learn how to play. I had to get to where I was better than the part I'd written. And that's a challenge that we'll all have as songwriters, but I don't want to get into that. That would be a digression. The point is that if I pick up a guitar, can I play it? Can I play it well enough that I can do the part that I need, that this song needs, I should say? Can I play the bass well enough to do what I got to do for this song? Can I play the keyboards well enough that the song gets what it needs from what I'm playing? I don't think you need more gear. I really do think you need to develop your talent. You need to develop your skills. You need to acquire the skills you don't have. And so when it's gut check time, you can deliver the goods. I have this, I've mentioned, I have this different brain chemistry than most people. Was diagnosed with chemical depression at one point, then life made a lot more sense. But the reason I bring it up is I have these mental lapses, I have these brain fogs, and I never know exactly when they're going to hit. Well, if I'm up playing a 2-hour show, which I'm getting ready to do May 1st, I have to be able to focus. I have to know that set well enough that I can defend against those lapses. It's got to get to where it's almost motor memory. So I go through it again and again and again and again and again and yet again. There's the saying that the amateur practices until they get it right. A professional practices until they can't get it wrong. And I think that's probably a good way to wrap this up. I don't think you need more gear. You just have to get better. You just have to work so that you can play better, so that you can do what you need to do, regardless of what life hands you. I could take things a step further and say, have you developed your craft as a musician? That you can still do your craft even when the power goes out. The rappers, they're kind of screwed if that happens. But if you're a musician, if you really are a musician, you should be able to do that. But that's almost a thought for another time. Anyhow, I appreciate your stopping. I hope everything's going well for you. If this resonates, check out the free song. I'm going to leave a link in the comment for that free song and a story. But whatever your passion happens to be, if it's music, if it's whatever, I don't think you need more gear necessarily to do what it is you do. You've just got to develop that skill, develop that talent to the point that you can do it anyway. Whether you've got the top of the line gear or not, whether you've got the latest shiny object or not, you've still got to be able to do what you do. Bottom line, regardless of the circumstances. Anyhow, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.